When Victoria Beckham sat down on Live with Kelly and Mark this week, she didn't expect to cause the studio audience to gasp, laugh, and swoon all within a few minutes. But that's exactly what happened when she made a hilariously candid confession about her earliest dates with husband David Beckham. With Kelly Ripa leaning in, Mark Consuelos chuckling beside her, and the studio audience hanging on every word, Victoria, impeccably dressed, naturally, lifted the lid on the surprisingly humble beginnings of one of the world's most glamorous couples. And as she put it with her trademark deadpan delivery, most of our first dates were actually in car parks. Cue Kelly's eyes widening, and the audience bursting into laughter. But Victoria, ever the queen of timing, raised a manicured finger and added quickly, "Not as seedy as it sounds. We were just trying to hide." "Wait, car parks," Kelly repeated, barely containing her grin. "Like actual parking lots." "Yes, darling," Victoria replied with a laugh, tucking a strand of sleek hair behind her ear. "Actual parking lots. It sounds terribly dodgy when you say it out loud, doesn't it? But truly, that was where we had most of our dates. We couldn't go anywhere else. David was already a very famous footballer, and I was the posh spice. If we went out to dinner, we'd have been mobbed before the starter arrived." "So you were basically having secret rendezvous in parking lots," Mark said with a teasing tone. "Like teenagers sneaking around." "Exactly," Victoria said, beaming. "We'd meet after his training sessions. He'd drive his lovely little BMW, I'd pull up in my car, and we'd just sit there for hours, talking, laughing, eating takeaway. It was all very sweet, actually. Sometimes I think those early days were the most romantic." The audience melted at that, and Kelly, never one to miss a chance for a good-natured jab, turned to Mark. "See, babe, you've been taking me to actual restaurants this whole time, when all I really needed was a nice car park." Mark grinned. "I knew I was overdoing it." A love story hidden in plain sight. Victoria's recollection of those clandestine parking lot dates offered a rare glimpse behind the curtain of the Beckham empire. A love story that began long before the fashion lines, the global fame, and the matching couture looks. "At the time," she continued, "we didn't even realize how strange it was. It felt normal to us. We'd meet up, just the two of us, sitting in our cars, holding hands, eating McDonald's fries, chatting about our dreams. It was really private. And I think it bonded us in a very special way." Kelly, clearly charmed, nodded. "That's actually so sweet. I think people forget you guys were just two young people falling in love in the middle of all that madness." "Exactly," Victoria said. "It was the only way to be alone. We were surrounded by cameras, fans, managers, and bandmates. That time in the car, that was ours. We could just be David and Victoria, not Beckham and Posh." The sincerity in her tone softened the room. The laughter turned into affectionate applause. "We'd talk for hours, then he'd drive off to training." Victoria recalled that she was still juggling the whirlwind of Spice Girls fame at the time. "I was constantly on the go, recording, rehearsing, doing photo shoots, and David was training and traveling with Manchester United. So our schedules never aligned perfectly. When we could, we'd carve out a couple of hours in the evening." Kelly interjected with mock disbelief. "You mean to tell me that the world's most beautiful couple was dadding in a parking lot, probably next to someone's grocery trolley?" "Oh, absolutely," Victoria replied, laughing. "Sometimes we'd even be near the Wythenshawe Tesco car park. I remember sitting there one night thinking, if someone spots us, this is going to be on the front page tomorrow, Posh and Beck's in a hatchback affair." The audience erupted in laughter again, while Mark shook his head in amusement. "You've officially ruined every romantic dinner spot. Now every guy's going to tell his girlfriend, babe, if it's good enough for the Beckhams." "Right," Kelly said, smirking. "Honey, we're going to the CVS parking lot tonight. It's romantic now." He was so shy but so sweet. As the laughter died down, Victoria grew thoughtful, recalling the personality traits that first drew her to David. "He was so shy," she said softly. "People see him now confident, handsome, this global icon, but when we first met, he could barely look me in the eye. He'd smile that little half smile and go bright red. I found it absolutely adorable." Kelly sighed. That's the sweetest thing I've ever heard. So, the shy footballer and the glamorous pop star sounds like a rom-com waiting to happen. Well, Victoria replied, smiling wryly. It sort of did, didn't it? Mark chimed in. And it's still running 25 years later. That's a pretty good sequel. Exactly, Victoria said. A very long-running sequel with 4 kids, a few homes, and far too many fashion fittings in between. I was the one who made the first move. Kelly couldn't resist asking who made the first move, and Victoria didn't hesitate. Oh, that was me, she said, matter-of-factly. I spotted him in the Manchester United Players' Lounge after a game. I wasn't even supposed to be there. One of my friends had tickets. And I saw this man across the room with this sweet smile chatting with his family. I thought, he's quite fit. Kelly burst into laughter. So Posh Spice saw golden balls and made the first move. Exactly, Victoria grinned. I walked over and gave him my number, on a train ticket actually, very glamorous. That's so chic, Kelly said. Even your phone number was designer. Victoria laughed. It was a bit of a risk, honestly. I wasn't sure he'd even call, but he did, and the rest, as they say, is history. The power of ordinary moments. As the conversation turned more reflective, Victoria admitted that those simple early days still hold a special place in her heart. I think when people see us now, the red carpets, the brand collaborations, the documentaries, they forget that our story started in something so ordinary. 2 kids sitting in cars, dreaming about the future. We didn't have fancy dinners or private jets back then. Just a car, some crisps, and a lot of laughter. Kelly nodded. That's what makes it relatable, honestly. You two are proof that love doesn't need all the bells and whistles. Mark leaned forward. It's funny, Kelly and I had our version of that. We were living in this tiny apartment in Brooklyn when we first started out. Our dates were Chinese takeout and VHS movies. Sometimes those simple moments are the ones that stick. Victoria smiled knowingly. Exactly. It's the small things that build something lasting. We still laugh about it. Victoria went on to say that even today, she and David often reminisce about those makeshift dates. Every now and then, she said, we'll be driving somewhere and pass a car park and just look at each other and start laughing. It's like our little inside joke. Kelly grinned. That's adorable. I can just imagine you two in your Aston Martin now, looking at a random parking lot and saying, "Ah, remember when?" Victoria laughed. Pretty much, though I don't think either of us would last long sitting in a car for 3 hours anymore. My back wouldn't handle it. Mark chimed in. The price of success, better seats, worse posture. Fans react to the revelation. Unsurprisingly, Victoria's revelation became an instant viral moment. Within minutes of the episode airing, social media was flooded with clips, memes, and affectionate comments. Victoria Beckham saying her early dates were in car parks just made her 100x more relatable, one viewer tweeted. Another wrote, imagine being parked next to Posh and Beck's in 1997 and not realizing history was being made. Others praised her for being refreshingly open. Love that Victoria can laugh about her past and still sound so grounded, one fan commented. It's why we've loved her all these years. Even David Beckham himself reportedly sent in a cheeky text during the broadcast, something Victoria hinted at by glancing at her phone mid-interview and giggling. Kelly caught the moment instantly. Is that David texting you about the car parks? She teased. Victoria nodded, laughing. He says, it wasn't all car parks, sometimes it was hotel lobbies. The crowd roared. From parking lots to power couple. By the end of the interview, Victoria's story had evolved from a funny anecdote into a heartfelt reminder of where true connection begins. Looking back, she reflected, I think those moments when you're stripped of all the glam, all the attention, that's when you see who someone really is. And David and I saw that in each other early on. Kelly smiled warmly. That's why you two have lasted. You didn't start with the glitz, you started with something real. Victoria nodded. Exactly. We might have started in car parks, but we built a life that's far from ordinary. As the studio audience applauded, Kelly reached across the desk to squeeze her hand. Well, if there's one takeaway today, it's this. True love might just be waiting for you in the nearest parking lot. Just maybe not after dark, Mark added, grinning. Victoria burst out laughing. Oh, definitely not. We were lucky no one called the police. The laughter filled the studio, and for a brief moment, the glamour of celebrity melted away, replaced by something far more charming. The image of two young lovers, sitting in their cars, sharing fries and dreams in a dimly lit lot, completely unaware they were writing one of the great modern love stories. A love that never lost its spark. Before leaving the stage, Victoria offered one final reflection, one that seemed to resonate deeply with Kelly, Mark, and everyone watching. You know, she said softly, no matter how big life gets, no matter how many beautiful things come your way, you never forget where it began. For us, it was car parks, cups of tea, and stolen hours. And honestly, that's what keeps it special, remembering how simple it once was. Kelly, clearly touched, smiled. I love that. You two are proof that fairy tales can start anywhere, even next to a Tesco trolley. Victoria laughed, gracefully standing to hug her hosts. Exactly. Not as seedy as it sounds, but definitely as memorable as it gets. The audience cheered. Kelly and Mark waved goodbye. And as the cameras faded to commercial, you could still hear Kelly quipping to Mark. Next date night, we're finding the nearest car park. Mark grinned, only if there's a drive-through. And somewhere, no doubt, Victoria Beckham was smiling, because for all her elegance and fame, she just reminded the world that the truest kind of love doesn't need chandeliers or candlelight. Sometimes, it just needs a steering wheel, a bag of fries, and the right person sitting beside